All right, before we begin, let's get rid of all the unwanted vibrations, frequencies, and energy. Peace and love to you. Peace and love to me. Okay, chapter 4 Your Healing Presence. And behold, a man of the company cried out, saying, Master, I beseech thee, look upon my son, for he is my only child. And lo, a spirit taketh him, and he suddenly cried out, and he turneth him, that he foameth again, and bruising him hardly, depart from him. And I besought thy disciples to cast him out, and they could not. And Jesus answering said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you and suffer you? Bring thy son hither. And as he was yet a coming, the devil threw him down and turned him. And Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and held the child and healed the child, the delivered and delivered him again to his father. And they were all amazed at the mighty power of God. Luke chapter 9, verse 38 through 43. Related passages, Matt chapter 17, verse 14 through 21. Mark chapter 9, verse 17 through 29. Bear with me on them Bible verses because the way they write is just, it's not smooth, but let's continue. There are similar stories in the book of Mark and Matthew, which definitely seem to indicate a disease known as epilepsy today. Of course, looking at the story, literally no one would think of demon possession, which was the popular belief in those days. The boy is thrown down. He foams at the mouth and wallows on the ground, suffering from convulsions. The Bible does not mention the word epilepsy. The word is derived from the Greek word epilepsia, which means a falling sickness characterized by seizures. The Greeks called epilepsy the sacred disease because it was believed to be caused by the moon. As we all know, the term lunatic comes from the Latin word lunaticus. In ancient symbology, the moon meant the subconscious mind. The sun was the illumined intellect or the conscious mind full of wisdom. In other words, the Bible is saying that the child had a subconscious poison pocket, which was the cause of his seizures and epileptic fits. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. Psalms chapter 121, verse 6. Modern psychology and psychiatry show definitely that mental and physical disorders have their roots in the depths of the deeper mind, called the subconscious or unconscious. Negative subconscious patterns are called pestilences of the darkness. By turning to the God presence within and calling on the power and goodness of God, we bring the action of God to play in our life. We prove our allegiance, devotion, and love for God by identifying ourselves with His qualities and by absolutely refusing to recognize evil as having any power over us. Because of our faith in the one power, we claim His perfect harmony and perfect peace, which is His will. That's what God's want. That's what God wants for you. Perfect harmony and perfect peace. Hippocrates around 400 BC recognized this type of mental disorder called epilepsy, which in his time was believed to be caused by divine beings. He ridicules the superstitions of his day and points out that the disease could not be of divine origin for the simple reason that the condition was healed by purifications and various incantations which were in vogue at the time. Incantations is the same thing like affirmations, but instead of saying I am this, I am that, you saying something like heal, heal, heal. That's like an incantation, which is still an affirmation. A local psychiatrist told me that his study of Hippocrates showed that this famous physician had a wonderful knowledge of the causes underlying mental disorders of all kinds. Whether the child in question was an idiot child, deaf and dumb, or an epileptic does not matter. We must realize in praying for another that with God all things are possible. All things. Not some, not this or that. All things. The book of Mark says this type of case is healed by prayer and fasting. Fasting means fasting from the sense evidence, symptoms, and the race belief. The race belief is the human belief, the general public's belief. And fasting don't just mean don't eat no food. It does mean that as well, but as you can see, fasting from self-evidence, meaning don't accept what you see. Recognize the truth which is in you, which is God, which can do anything because with God all things are possible. We must fast mentally, reject the poison feast of objective evidences. Where did this healing take place? Jesus, as the story goes, had to heal himself of the disease, whether insanity or idiocy, and outer results necessarily followed. It is the prayer of faith which gets results. The prayer of faith gets results. Having faith gets results. The mentality deranged state of consciousness is conditioned in us as long as we see that condition of illness portrayed. You giving power to it. You basically saying this cancer is more powerful than God. Therefore, it's hard for you to get rid of your cancer. But the moment you accept the fact that God can do anything, which includes to heal you in cancer or whatever the hell else they say you got or you say you got, you take your power back and the magic happens. The failure to heal an insane child or an idiot is not the child's fault, but the absence of faith in the disciples, the mind faculties. The one praying must cure himself of the claim supposedly gripping the ailing child. The condition is actually gripping the practitioner who is unawakened yet to the truth. So you can't heal somebody of something if you don't believe you can heal yourself of something. So if you don't believe you can heal somebody's, if you can't heal your own emotions, it's going to be hard for you to heal somebody else's emotions. When we fail in this type of case, we simply have failed to fix our mind's eye on the embodiment of health which the ailing one needs. We are the reason the disciples could not heal the sick boy. We are told the reason the disciples could not heal the sick boy was due to unbelief, having no faith. There is a deep unconscious belief in the minds of people that certain diseases are difficult to heal. When they see a lunatic and his symptoms, their senses are deeply impressed with the difficulties. The disciples spoken of are our own attitudes, mental faculties, and viewpoints. We must completely detach ourselves from the evidence of senses and identify with the omnipotent healing presence, paying no attention to appearances and symptoms. Power, faith, confidence, and elevation of consciousness will come as we consider the divine masterpiece within and not the appearance, not the disease. Here is a treatment I use in treating mental disorders such as insanity. I go within myself, mention the name of the patient. Then I think of God for 3 or 4 minutes by mentally dwelling on the infinite peace, harmony, divine intelligence, divine love, and wisdom. At the same time, I claim that that which is true of God is true of the one I am praying for. I try to get the feel that this is all order, harmony, bliss, peace, and joy in the mind of the person being prayed for. In this way, I induce the mood or mental atmosphere of peace, health, and harmony. When I feel that I have done the best I can, I leave it and pronounce the person whole. I may repeat this treatment 2 or 3 times a day or as often as I am led to do so, always praying as if I had never prayed before. If I have only a partial realization, the person in question will feel better. The main thing is to keep on keeping on until the day breaks and the shadows flee away in your mind. The main purpose of all our prayers for others is to get the feeling of inward joy, and God will do the rest. In prayer, we must go to heaven. That means a state of inner peace and rest, relaxation. As we enter this heaven frequently, we shall see heaven on earth. Here go that Bible stuff again. Bear with me. And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowled together, and could in no wise lift herself up. And when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said unto her, Woman, go out loosed from thine infirmity. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with the indignation, because that Jesus had healed on the Sabbath day, and said unto the people, There are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them, therefore, come and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day. The Lord then answered him and said, Thou hypocrite, doth not each one of you on the Sabbath lose his ox or his ass from the stall, and lead him away to watering? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan hath bound, lo, these 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath day? Did you catch that? Luke chapter 13, verse 10 through 16. Healing by the laying on of hands has gone on for countless generations. I have seen some remarkable healings performed in that manner. Some say they are gifted and that their hands are healing hands. Of course, if they believe that they have this divine gift of healing, it is done unto them as they believe. The truth of the matter is that all of us have the gift of healing. It is not a divine prerogative bestowed on the few. The healing presence is operating within you 24 hours a day. Did you ever consider all the cuts, bruises, and scratches you experienced when you were young? Did you not notice an infinite intelligence at work? It formed thrombin, closed up the cut, gave you new cells, and a complete healing took place. This happened in all probability without you being aware of it. The intelligence within is constantly renewing your body. Faith causes this healing power to speed up tremendously. So much so that you can experience an instantaneous healing based upon your faith and the practitioner's faith. If you have somebody praying for you, whether it's a preacher, a voodoo doctor, a doctor at the hospital, whatever it is, right? It's the faith that's doing the healing. That's why when you was a kid, your body used to heal faster because you ain't have all these doubts in your head. You ain't have all this stuff in your head saying, this not possible, that's not possible. You wasn't there yet. You was still free. Your mind was free. So you could heal like, wow. As soon as you grew up, you started reading the newspaper and watching the news, and listening to the doctors, you start healing slowly, didn't you? Then you started aging. As a matter of fact, a great number of churches of all denominations practice the laying on of hands. We are told that the woman in the Bible story was healed on a Sabbath. Many practice the Sabbath from a literal standpoint, thinking it is a sin to drive a nail on the Sabbath or do work of any kind. Some go to extremes and won't even handle money on the Sabbath. All of this is meaningless. The Sabbath is an inner stillness, an inner certitude, whereby man reminds himself of the availability of the God presence in all emergencies, at all times, everywhere. You are walking in the Sabbath when you accept in your mind that your prayer is answered. When you meditate and pray and succeed in reaching the point of inner peace, then your prayer is answered. You have reached the seventh day, the seventh hour, which psychologically means the moment of conviction. You are in the Sabbath when your heart is aflame with the glory of God and the certainty of his response. And at that moment, you will experience an instantaneous, divine transfusion of energy, power, vitality, and life. We must realize that external acts, ritual ceremony, and conforming to rites, precepts, and ordinances of some organization or church is not real religion or true worship. A man may observe all the rules and regulations of his church and at the same time violate all the laws of God in his heart. He could go to church every day of the week and yet be very unreligious. We must become aware of the fact that the only change that matters is the internal change, the change of the heart, where you have actually fallen in love with spiritual values. Then all fear, enemies, and sickness will fall away. That's why on that picture you see Jesus with that heart. When you walk in the consciousness of peace, health, and happiness, you are in the Sabbath all day long. You are in the Sabbath when you feel and know that it is impossible for your prayer to fail. You are unmoved, undisturbed, calm, serene, and tranquil because you are carrying in your subjective mind a divine impression, a subconscious embodiment of your ideal. You know that there is always an interval of time between the subjective embodiment and the objective manifestation. Your inner certitude in imperturbability is the Sabbath. And it was on the Sabbath day that she was healed. The ruler of the synagogue mentioned in the Bible means the ruling thought or prevailing worldly viewpoint or opinion. I just want to point out, y'all know how people be arguing about the Sabbath day. We're not supposed to work on the Sabbath day. Well, it says she was healed on the Sabbath day by Jesus. Ain't that work? So don't argue with nobody. Just know. The synagogue in your mind, where the aggregation of thoughts, feelings, moods, and opinions gather, Jesus is always available, which means when you are looking at your desire, you are really looking at Jesus or your solution or that which saves. The woman who has the infirmity means the feeling of weakness, the depressed state of consciousness, the subjective belief in some crippling disease. The word woman means emotional nature, the subjective side of life. Whatever our disease, it represents a negative pattern of thought charged with emotion in our subliminal depths. The ruler of the synagogue represents the fear thoughts, the doubts, and arguments which come to your mind trying to dissuade you to turn away from the belief in the one power which can do all things. Not some things, not this or that. All things. There is an argument in your mind, and you must psychologically slay these hypocritical thoughts by asking them, where did they come from? Is there a principle behind them? Or are they not shadows of the mind? The fear thoughts have no heavenly credentials. Take your attention away from them altogether, and they die of neglect. Feast on God's almighty power. Accept it. Imagine that you are being healed now. Do this as often and as necessary, and you will experience the Sabbath or the fullness of acceptance. Then you will rise and walk. It is the Sabbath day for you. Peace and love. I'll see y'all next time for chapter 5.